is Danny Trevitz. I'm a reentry mentor for Clackamas County. And this is Megan. Megan, if you want to say hi.
Hi, I'm Megan Allen. I'm the program manager for Clackamas County Reentry to Bridges to Change.
Awesome. So what we're going to be talking about is how, like a personal experience of how I'm dealing with this whole COVID-19 thing and how it's impacting my work life, my personal life, and most importantly, my recovery. And there's a lot of unknowns. So before I get into that, I'll just do a little backstory, like a little history about Danny. So I was born in Portland, born and raised. I had a lot of the same childhood as a lot of people probably in this field or the clients that like we do serve. A lot of trauma, a lot of unstable, a lot of different housing, foster care, and all that good stuff. And there was definitely like a lot of trauma. And so how that correlates to me, like during this time, like growing up, like we were always in a state of transition and the unknown. And so when this stuff started happening, like around March, myself and others, and I'm pretty sure everybody out there, there's a lot of uncertainties. And me personally, I don't do well with transitions and like the unknown. So that's always been like a trigger, but also like a growth area for me. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, is how I'm dealing like with the transition. It's been hard. It's all like the media, all the unknown, like the both sides of like the political platform. It's just been like, this adds to it. So in my recovery, one of the biggest things that I learned is what I can focus on for myself through simple behaviors. If that's going to work, going to school, doing chores, discipline, self-care, all that. I focus on real simple behaviors. Sometimes, you know, especially like my experience in my early recovery, I would go to meetings, I was in treatment, I was in outpatient treatment, I did the whole thing, and people would come up to me, like, I call them sobriety cliches. They're like, let go, let God, be disciplined. And I'm like, what behaviors are like will help me to be disciplined? And long story short, they really didn't tell me any like behaviors that will help me out, because I didn't know how to do that. And I feel like they were just filling my ear with all these sayings. So around like my first year, like after like my first year, I really started focusing on like what behaviors will demonstrate that Danny's discipline. Small behaviors, like every morning I wake up and make my bed. I wash like the dishes every day. I do laundry. I show up on time. I'm like 5 minutes early at least. So what simple behavior that I did and doing for this like really weird transition in our society is focusing on the small things that I can control. So, and how that works out right now is projects. I just finished a kitchen island, and I finished putting rock in my lawn. And I'm going to be sharing like my experience was putting in like, putting in like the kitchen island. And I'm going to attempt to correlate it with SMART goals, try to use SMART goals, and also like the stages of change, and how I applied like the stages of change and SMART recovery into finishing like this kitchen island. And just bear with me, my anxiety is kind of up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are experiencing that with this whole new Zoom and Facebook live streaming and all that stuff. So about 2 weeks ago, Everybody's been on lockdown, and especially like in my personal life. And I was getting stir crazy. And like with my mind and my mental health issues or barriers or whatever, like we want to define them as, me sitting still is really hard to do. And I was doing chores, I was doing all this stuff, but like that wasn't enough. So uh, my partner, she actually brought it to my attention that I'm kind of getting stir crazy, like around the house. And we talked about doing projects before all this COVID-19, but I was always too busy. So, uh, like, to me, uh, that's kind of like the pre-contemplation part of the stages of change, which I really didn't know that I was acting stir crazy until like my partner gave me like the feedback. And so I thought about it, like her feedback, and I was like, maybe she's on to something. And so I started thinking about it, and that's a contemplation part of it, excuse me. And so I really started thinking about that. And also, if I really wanted to do that, like doing this kitchen project, that's something that I wanted to do, even though my partner said it might be a good idea. So I took a week to really think about it, like the
So
pros and
Dan,
cons. Yeah.
is that pre-contemplation? Is that like what exactly is that? Is that like when you're not really aware of it? Is it like when you're in denial of things,
Yeah.
not of
So
squirreliness?
to me, like in one sentence, like the pre is not knowing that there's an issue.
Okay,
Like we're not seeing like the consequences and all that stuff.
gotcha.
And for me, going back when I was in like heavy drinking and using and all that stuff, I thought it was normal.
Mm,
I thought drinking like on the weekends and being blacked out was just something that young 20-year-olds do,
yeah,
and or in college and all that stuff. And even beyond that, like my childhood experience, like you take away like me being 20, like 5 or whatever, that was a norm. So I really didn't think it was like that big of an issue.
gotcha.
Does
So
that
your
make
partner
sense?
kind of she planted the seed
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Got it.
She was, just seeing some stuff that I was like unaware of.
Gotcha.
And so I started thinking about it, and like the pros and cons. Like part of me wanted to do it, but part of me didn't, because like that's a lot of work. And I do have some experience like doing kitchens and flooring and all that, but but I was like I was scared to for it not to turn out the way that I wanted it to turn out.
Yeah,
And
feelings.
yeah, and so fear to me like prevents me from doing a lot of things, like the insecurities, right? Like my guard is up a lot, and I'm really been like focusing like on that and taking that risk that
Right.
I often tell people, like take that risk. And so I decided to take that risk, knowing that I'm in charge of that risk. And so like the next step is like the preparation.
Right.
So that's something that I feel being in, you know, sober for a little bit, doing the steps, all that stuff that I'm able to do now,
Yeah.
take a step back. And I spent a lot of time like on this part. I never put a kitchen island in, but I know people that have. So I talked to them and got some pointers like what to do, like what not to do. So I started feeling pretty good. And then from there, I went to Home Depot. I got everything. And you should have seen me running around Home Depot uh, all over the store because I'm like, oh, I need this, I need that. Then I would have forgot something. So I probably should have had a list,
Ah,
but I figured it out. And going to Home Depot and talking to somebody, that's a small step. That's like attainable, right?
Right.
And so I started picking up some steam. I started getting like my legs moving, and I started feeling better. I was still fearful, nervous, scared, and all that, but positive emotions started coming out. I'm like, I can do this. You know, like my chest started puffing out a little bit. And so I go to Home Depot, you know, I get everything that like I need. I probably got too much on certain stuff, but I come home and I'm like, okay, I feel better about this. What can I do to keep going? You know, like now I'm in the action.
Right.
I got a plan. I got everything that I probably need. I got a couple buddies that I can call if I'm having an issue. And so now it's time to put in work, like the action part. And oftentimes this is like would, you know, take me out is the action part because I feel stressed out and I didn't know where to start. And so on this, I really focus on like a simple behavior. Okay, what do I need to do first? Okay, well, let's start sanding like the island itself. Like I bought a 30-inch by 25 inch cabinet at Home Depot and it's unfinished. Okay, well, let's sand the areas that you're gonna put the finish on first. And so I started doing that and I'm like, man, like this feels pretty good too. And I'm not messing up. If I did, then I can sand it off. And then I transitioned from there. I started sanding like the panels that I'm gonna either glue on or hit like a nailer on. And it's maple because like our cabinets that we have, our kitchen cabinets, is maple. So I want to make sure everything's lined up. And so I start sanding them after I'm done like sanding like the cabinet. I take the doors off, like the cabinet. I take like the hinges, and I started like picking up some stuff. And part of me like wanted to work all night, and I was like, no, you gotta do self care. You gotta work, like your, you know, like your wife, like you gotta spend time with her, take care of your dog. So I stopped, and I did like a little inventory. I'm like, okay, I'm still scared, but I feel pretty good. And so I get up, you know, and I start working again. I start putting like the finish on. And I'm like, okay, I never put finish on anything like before. And I'm like, it doesn't look good. But my partner, she's like, no, like you got to put it on a couple times. So that I'm following like a process, like what the finish said on the side of the little bottle or whatever it's called. And it says like put 2 to 3 layers on. So I'm trusting the process. Even though I can't see it yet, I'm like, oh, okay. So I put like the first layer on, wait for it to dry. I put the second one on, and I'm like, wow, this is looking pretty good. Like this is awesome. So I put the finish on everything. I do it on the cabinets, the little side panels, like even like the trim that I put on the side of the island, and then like the doors and all that. And it's not perfect. Like by like the third coat, I started seeing drips like over the doors. And I was like, man, that sucks. And it kind of took like the steams out. But I'm like, you know what? I can fix that. That's all right. And like my partner helps me out, and she had a couple of, like some feedback, like certain ways of doing it. And then she started helping. And it was pretty awesome. And like they turned out like pretty good. So I get everything like taken care of. And I'm ready to put this thing, you know, start make it in like an island. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this, you know. So I call my brother-in-law, and he's like, Danny, make a little block. Go to Home Depot, buy like some 2x4s, and make a little box inside the island in. I'm like, okay, that's something that I can do. I can cut wood, I can measure, and so I did, and I'm like, this looks all right. You know, I took some time. I was patient, and even like when I was making like the foundation of it, I started thinking about this. Man, this kind of sounds like what I did, like when I got out of treatment and I want to be sober. And, like really had to work on like my foundation and I really had to take some time, right? Like I really had to anchor it down. And that's what I did like with this island. I anchored it down. I took my time. Was I frustrated? Oh yeah, like it was only me in the house and I was saying some curse words. But I kept with it. And that's kind of like my first year of being sober. It was good, it was bad. Like I often tell people like my first year of being sober is I kind of felt like I was going through puberty. 15 like years old, like my voice was cracking. One like minute I was feeling like one emotion, the other one I was feeling a different emotion. I felt awkward being around people. It didn't matter. It didn't matter who. It was family, friends. It was just, and it made sense because I'm not ingesting a substance now, and so like feel like I'm exposed. So I'm rambling a little bit, but so I got the foundation in, and it wasn't perfect, but I knew the island was not going to go anywhere. And I put that island on, and I'm like, wow, I can see the progress. This is going to look all right. Like the island is sturdy, the panels are in, and they look good. And even like when I started putting the panels on, I was hitting like a nail gun. But that's all right. People can't see it, right? And I learned from that. So I got the panels in, I got the island in. Now it's time for like the main focus of it, which is like the countertop. And I got a nice butcher block. So I really can't mess this up because I don't want to be out like this money. And I'm glad I went with my gut at Home Depot because it fits perfect. I spent a little bit more detail to make sure there's 9 inches overhang, like long ways, and then it's like ½ inch on both sides. And I'm like, wow, this looks pretty good. And then I was like, this is pretty awesome. So, but I had to screw underneath to anchor down like the butcher block. And I was like, this is going to be hard. But because I was prepared, I had the right tools to do that. It wasn't that hard. But I thought it was going to be hard, but it wasn't. So I'm feeling good. And I'm like, this is awesome. But then some doubt started coming in. And because I was really good at spurting the first 50 meters, but I always had a hard time finishing like the race, like the last 50. And so I was like, you know what, I have to get this done. Like for myself, it's coming together, but I just have to tidy this up. So I got the anchor, I got the cabinet, I got the panels, I got the block on. Now it's time like to put the trim on. And part of me just want to race and try to, do it like real quick. And I really had to slow down. And so I took my time and I put the trim like on the side, and then I put some baseboard trim around it. And it was done. I was really excited. Like I was, like every 5 minutes, like I would ask my partner, it looks pretty good, right? And then, but here's like where my insecurities really hit in. So I was pretty excited, but that emotion left. And I started kind of self-doubting myself. I'm like, oh, that's not perfect. Like the baseboard is not perfect. I should have wrapped the baseboards around instead of stopping it on the long side where the side trim comes down. And my partner, she was like, stop. You can do that all day. Or you can just be happy that you gave me this beautiful island. And so that's like, so how I kind of correlate that to, doing the sober thing, it's often called like a lot of different things. I personally call it getting right, like in my personal life. So I'm going to share like my experience when I decided to get sober and work the steps and work a program. And it's not just the steps. Like I went to counseling. I'm still in counseling. I'm currently taking care of my mental health. And I'm not ashamed of that. You know, like I felt very empowered, and I'm starting to see like, you know, like the positive that's coming out of that. But this kind of correlates into what I did and what I'm doing like now. I did like most people did a detox. I did an inpatient and I did an outpatient. And as soon as the outpatient was coming up, I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to have that 24-hour or 9 hours support every day. And so like to me, like I was almost as scared as like the first day that I went into like treatment, inpatient treatment. So what got me into treatment is, you know, people like I really didn't know that I had an issue, you know, like with pills. And but like my family, my friends were like, hey, like something's going on. And so I thought about it like a little bit. I really had to do like like have a perspective that really wasn't mine. Like, is this like a really issue? And I'm like, yeah, it is. But I didn't know like where to go. I felt trapped. So I had friends help me out, and you know, I'm lucky to be like to get into treatment and do this like sober thing. So now, like when there's an issue, you know, like in my life, I kind of do like go through that too, and I feel like because you know I've done this before, even though I'm not going into treatment, but maybe it's like a new job, or maybe it's like a school project, or this video, like this is like this Zoom thing, man, like my insecurities are through the roof, but I'm here and I'm doing it, so I feel pretty good. So how this like the kitchen island like kind of you know shows me like what I'm doing right is, you know what, I'm preparing. You know, I'm making sure I'm just not trying to do something spur of the moment. I'm taking a step back. You know, is this a good thing or a bad thing? You know, is it something that I really can do? Am I setting like the bar too high? Or can I focus on the simple behaviors? And so, you know, and I focus on the action. I didn't know how to do a kitchen island. I just went with it and I adapted. And that's what we do now, right? And especially like what's going on now. We're adapting, like we're figuring it out. And we're asking others for help. Like we're calling, hey, I never done this before. Can you help me out? I'm focusing on the small behaviors. You know, I'm being honest, like with myself. Now, the one thing I haven't touched on is like the maintenance. So going back to like that's the last stage is the maintenance. And some people like will put like a different stage in there, but I like the maintenance. So with this kitchen island, every so often I'm putting some healthy oil on it to really help like the wood and stuff. And a couple of days after I put the kitchen island in, me and my partner, like we went around and touched up like some areas that some dust got on like on the finish. And we sanded it down a little bit and we repainted and put the clear coat. So that's what I have to do with me staying right. Is I really have to, you know, if I'm getting feedback, I have to be open-minded to that. Now, if the feedback doesn't apply to me, that's all right. But if it hits something, I have to be honest, and I'm honest like with myself. Then I have to like do like the preparation. You know, like how am I going to change this, or how am I going to accomplish this? And then I really focus on the action, and then I go to maintenance. How can I like maintain? Like with my lawn, I got to mow it every week. If not, it doesn't look the greatest, but I'm proud of my lawn. You know, I'm proud of my house. And that's pretty much all I have. Is there any questions?
No, I just want to reiterate, you know, at the time that you were putting the island together, did you know that you were going through the stages of change, or did you just put 2 and 2 together?
Well, like to be honest, so I finished like the island probably like within like last week, and then we were talking about like doing a video,
Right.
and you know I I was scared about doing this video. Like,
Yeah,
but like I want to bring something personal
right.
and, talk about this COVID stuff. And like, there's a lot of uncertainties.
Yeah,
And I want to talk, about my experience, focusing on like what I can handle.
right.
Right. So, and to me, especially like right now, and it's not just with like the kitchen island, you know, I've been triggered a lot, growing up, uh, like my parents were babies having babies, like they were
Yeah,
16 and 17. And, I was born into drug use pretty much. And in the midst of their addiction, me, my brother and sister would spend like weeks at a time in our room, and we didn't have toys. So a lot of times, like I would just look at the ceiling and make shapes out of like the whatever's up there. And so I had no problem being alone, right? Because that's what like my upbringing is. But that's not good for me.
yeah,
Like that's triggers,
right.
I don't talk to people. I show up late to work. I start, uh, thinking about drinking or a pill. And, so I'm grateful that my partner, like, she's like, hey, do a project.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I think it's important that because you and I talked about this a lot, and just, with working from home or just not having your usual routine where, for me it's getting up, going to work, and then
mm,
I would go work out or walk and then connect with my, you know, uh, I'm a person who goes to a lot of support groups. And when it changed to Zoom and all that, I started to build little resentments too, right? And so I had to like figure out like what was I resentful about and what did I have control over? And that piece of not having control and how that triggers a lot of those old traumas that we have from the past. Was really important for me to acknowledge, for one, instead of pushing it away and just ignoring the fact that all this stuff was going on that I didn't have any
yeah.
control over. And the old me would have been like, well, this is a perfect time to drink, so I don't have to worry about it, right?
Mm,
So now it's like, okay, what do I have control over? I have control over how I react to what's going on.
mm,
And that's basically it. Like I can't
yeah.
control what the president's saying, and I can't control what, what even you were doing, right?
Mm,
So all I have control over is me. And so keeping that focus and doing uncomfortable things like
mm,
Zoom meetings
mm,
um, has helped um, has helped me. And then also talking about
mm,
it openly about, yeah, I don't like how I'd look on a Zoom meeting. Um, I don't, there's some kind of insecurity that goes on with it.
mm,
And then what's happening the more I do it is it becomes more natural and I don't worry about those things.
mm,
And and then I'm able to at least let go of my insecurities and start listening to what other people are saying,
mm,
and be able to um think about these, like the stages of change. And I liked how, you were pre-contemplative, and then you like a seed was planted, and then you
mm,
started to think about it, and then you started to, you were contemplating and making plans, and then all these little things that are kind of scary, that you get judgment and fear,
mm,
and you were willing, because a lot of it is willingness, right? And same with our recovery. It's like the layers of the pain. At first it doesn't look so great, like when
mm,
we get sober, where I was messy, man. I was not someone who knew what those emotions were that I was feeling, and I didn't allow myself to feel those emotions before. So now I was feeling them, and I was feeling like I would ugly cry in meetings and was so embarrassed, and I would kept have people, it's okay, get it out. And I was
mm,
like, this is not what I do. um but now, like if I cry somewhere, because I never know when it's going to happen, I'm okay with it. Like it's just like laughing, it's just the other feelings are meant to be felt, right? So I love that you put it in a sense where you had like that circle, right? Because I
Mhm.
visualize the stages of change, and it's constant. And how we maintain it. And that's just, the things that we learn in treatment and in sobriety,
Mhm.
and it's meant to be taken into our every part of our lives.
Mhm.
And those little sayings, I know that they meant, like, they annoyed me at first too, but
Mhm.
for some reason, some nowadays, I think just because, I don't know, um my recovery has changed, and I'm back to books, and the little sayings or something, for whatever
Yeah,
reason, a little comforting to me, and I'm
yeah.
like, it's
But
okay. Except I
my
always did
point,
let go and get drugged, but
right.
you let
Well,
go or get drugged.
just from my experience, if like those sayings are awesome, but there's no substance behind it, and like you can't tell me what behavior that's gonna
Right. Yeah.
because like, you know, to me, like the greatest question that I ever asked was, how do you do that?
Right. And that's
Right.
it too. I like how you went to people who knew what they were doing, just like in
Yeah.
recovery. I watched people who knew what they were doing, or at least they looked like they knew what they were doing, right? And
Right.
I didn't so much listen to what they said as how they treated other folks. And I aligned myself with folks like that, because I knew I was attracted to people who were like me, and I needed to figure out a different way to live. And that was by associating with people who looked like at least they were doing the deal. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Megan. So like one thing I do want to say is, like what helped me out a lot and is helping me out like during this time is I am challenging like myself and taking rest and doing like the hard work, just like a lot of people are doing. But I'm putting Danny's stamp on it,
Yeah.
meaning, and that's really important. Yeah, like I took people's advice, but I did things like my way,
Yeah.
and sometimes like I have to be aware of that, but most times, I have to be true to me,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I'm learning. I'm gonna be
Right.
40 this year, and
Yeah.
just being sober, doing stuff like this, at the end of the day, it allows me to be okay, like with me.
Right. No, I
Right.
agree. I didn't know and I still think I'm learning who I truly am, just because I
Mhm.
suppressed who I really was for a long time,
Mhm.
by masking with drugs and alcohol. And I think it's important to embrace ourselves, you know, um, and just be okay with that fear piece, that you're afraid of showing who you are, or that you're going to be judged, or whatever
Mhm.
that is. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? The only thing that matters to is and how
Yeah.
you feel at the end of it. And if you feel
Yeah.
great, then who the heck cares what other people think?
Yeah.
So,
And that sounds great, but that's a learning process,
but, oh, I
right?
know it takes a long time.
Yeah. And
It does.
yeah, and then just one more thing is sometimes from my experience, like the word trigger can be like almost a bad word. To me, it's more like
Trigger.
what we do with that, right? And it's okay to be triggered, but it's how I'm going to respond. Just like you said, I have a choice to control how I'm going to respond. If it's what's the simple behaviors or the big stuff.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
cool.
Awesome.
Well, I think that's it. Uh,
Yeah.
thank you, everybody. Have a good night, and
Thank
we're
you.
all in this together.
All
So,
right.
all right,
Good
bye.
night.
Good night.